Good evening and welcome back to my channel. This is the next installment in the Soviet T35 heavy tank build. And we are now at the semi-tedious stage of assembling, painting, assembling. Not that some of this stuff wasn't tedious, but well, there we go. We have the main assemblies are done. There's a bunch of little detail-y pieces to do, but we're now at the point where I need to be painting and assembling because there's enough of the things that the are going to be unreachable to paint, so we need to get into those. So the assembly parts we have gone through, and I've gone ahead and worked through. When we last left it, we were looking at tracks. So tracks, where did I leave tracks? I left tracks like this. Tracks got left, move these out of the way, essentially like this, with an upper and a lower. And that is essentially, the reason being, it's going to be easier to put them on and off, because once this goes together, there are skirts that go on, and the way this top goes on and the way all this stuff goes together, feeding this through is easier if I have this top piece like this and then the bottom, and then I can just click these two together and they'll work. So I did test them. I made sure these all worked on the layout of the track. So I put them all together, got it to where they all fit right. So now it's just a matter of dropping these things in place once I get the base paint job done. So that's how we left our tracks. Right now, the current base coat is a steel silver. This is just a base coat to get the steel down, and I'll then go back and weather those up before I put them on the tank, get a base weathering done, then they'll go on the vehicle, and then from there we'll weather the whole model based on how it'll go. So that's how we did the tracks. Then we started doing these little detail parts, right? These I left the clear piece off that goes there. That'll go back on later. I did run into one gotcha, and as you're going through and you're doing your main turret, couple of gotchas. So first of all, this piece right here is not C64, it's C61 on the sprue. You can see that when you go to actually do it, but it's just a typo. More importantly, this piece right here, it implies that this glues to that and then slides in, and it sort of creates a holder for this breech assembly. Here's the catch. That glued to that does not leave enough room for this, so that doesn't fit. What I ended up doing was putting this in, sliding this breech in, and then putting this associated next to it. That's how it seemed to work. That's how it worked for me. I mean, if I'm just not seeing something and whatever, that's fine. This is nice detail. So there's some really nice detail on the inside of this. I did assemble this with the hatches closed, so none of this detail is going to be visible, but I did it anyway. The assembling this cage is a little bit of a pain. It's sort of tedious and tricky, but you get this assembly here. If you're not going to do all this interior, then you really only need this ring. So that's this ring right here. So it's part D11. None of this other interior stuff is relevant at all if you're not going to have things open. The ring does help form the shape of the upper turret, so it allows the turret to shape up appropriately. So in that sort of a perspective, it was useful, and that's actually why I did it. I knew I was going to assemble it with the hatches closed, and I was like, well, do I need to really do this? But I did it for the experience of doing it, and also because I figured that ring was going to be important. And as it turns out, the ring's important, but none of the rest of it was. With that said, it was a good experience to do. No other real gotchas or tricks there. This goes in, the machine gun goes through there. A couple little fit issues for the top piece here, and you can see all the putty on the ring there. The rest of it went together well. This piece here, so you have this little sight, it's over here, that goes onto there, and then as you'll see it here, it sort of creates this little sight. It's this really, really flimsy piece, and it's very, 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 it's sort of, so the join line is right here. So right there is where it joins. So getting that to line up and be nice, you kind of got to get tricksy with it. I'll be going back over this stuff set up and then I'll clean it up. But overall, it went together fairly well. So the main turret is now together. So it's ready to go in. So once that was done, right? Once the main turret was done, I got to this page where it's like, hey, let's put the skirts on and let's go. So that's where I am now, which meant it's time to start applying paint. And I know this doesn't look like it, but I did. The whole model got a coat of rattle can, and it was Army Painter rattle can. They're Russian tank. This is a pretty good color. It's very, very close to the sprue color. Let's see if I get that sprue here. So here's a sprue. You can see it's very close to the sprue color, but you can see where it is, where it goes down. And I did go back and I sprayed the skirts that are going to go on green. That's drying, so we'll let that dry. So I've given the main pieces a one coat, and so I've started to get to work on it. The next piece was doing what I anticipated, which was painting the wheels. So what I've done is I break off the bogies, and I'm painting the wheels and bogies and giving them their detail paints for now, and then I will go back and glue those on. So I did the starboard side here, got that one done, and then broke off the port side, and I'm now working my way through those. I'm doing the springs and gunmetal, silverish, and then I will go back and I will do the wheels in black gray. It's Vallejo black gray. And then we'll go from there. Once I get the wheels done, we'll put the bogies back on. Once the bogies are on, I can then put the tracks on, do the weathering for the tracks, put the tracks on, put the skirts on. Then it's sort of assemble the whole piece and start putting it together and start weathering it. There's a whole bunch of detail pieces, as you can tell, that remember the things I said I was going to not do until later. That's where we are. So those pieces have been base coated already. Once I get all this base coated and I start putting it all together and start putting together for the painting, then I'll start to assemble the detail pieces, because otherwise I'm going to break it off and lose them. But that's where we are now. I just wanted to go ahead and share those couple of gotchas that I have. I'm very, very happy with the way this is coming together, with the way this looks. This antenna is incredibly flimsy, but overall, that drops in there well. The details of the kit, that really goes together nice. There's just a few little, this whole assembly thing, it would look really cool if I was going to do it, and paint it up and so forth. But then there's, the flip side of, the detail is okay. I'm happy with the way this kit goes together. The top piece fits moderately well to the bottom hull. The deck does have a few places where it's flimsy, like here you can see where it didn't quite fit entirely, but the thickness of this metal or this plastic sort of gives a nice impression, and I'm not going to have this thing painted up like it's brand new. So it'll look nice. It'll look like it's years, which is what I'm going for. So with that said, that's where I am now. I will go ahead, move on, get started with the base painting so I can put the whole thing together, and then come back and start with the whole weathering and base, camo coating and whatever I'm going to do with it. So I did want to stop at this point, though, to give an illustration of where what I thought was a good assembly stage, because I think that's one of the primary stages for this, is to stop here and take those bogies off, do those base painting, and do that before you put it all together. So with that said, that's as far as I am now. I will go ahead and move on And I will rejoin you when this one's, further along. Until then, thanks for watching. I hope this is helpful, and happy modeling.